Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Backstick podcast. I'm Jamal Roberts, and I'm joined here as usual by Dom Okus. Dom, how are you doing, mate?
I'm good, bro. Feeling well. Back in London right now. It's absolutely freezing, so not buzzing off that. But really looking forward to this conversation. We've got someone here from the UK, so looking forward to just getting into this conversation, man.
Yeah, and this is a special episode of the Backstick pod because for once, all three members in the studio are on the same time zone. We're all in the UK, so without further ado, I would like to introduce today's guest, One Knoxville captain, legend, leader, Mr. Jordan Skelton. Skelts, how you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. Cheers. I'm doing well. I'm very happy to be here, lads.
Lovely, mate. And how's it been? Obviously, I know you're back up in Newcastle. How's it been seeing the family and that?
Yeah, mate. It's been ledge. We obviously have a fairly long off season over in America, so we have November, December, January kind of our off season. But I get to come home for normally about 2 weeks or so. So just good to be back seeing the family. It's obviously the only thing you can't really replace when you go over there, isn't it? So it's good to be home.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And obviously, Dom, you mentioned it being cold, but I bet up there in the northeast it might be a little bit colder.
Absolutely Baltic up here, boys. I tell you, I don't reckon you two could hack it, man.
Yeah, not for me. Not for me.
Oh, mate, I'll be honest. Like, I mean, you're only just up the road from where I was in Knox, and we get similar weather, don't we? It's nice in that part of Tennessee.
It's the weather in America is absolutely ledge where I've experienced it because I've been mostly in the south, so I've had a lot of sun a lot of the time. So, you know, it's just the problems over there is obviously in the area we live, it can get too hot, can't it?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
105 and 110.
Mate, it's the humidity for me. It's like breathing in. It's breathing in. But you know when you open up an oven, that's what it feels like when you open up the door, isn't it?
Step out the shower and you're sweating again. Absolutely driven.
And the other lads, they don't get it, do they? They're so used to it. They don't get it.
No, they really don't.
Oh, mate, our centre half, Declan, he won't mind me saying, but he's like, we joke with him all the time that he'd need like a layer of sunscreen even when he'd walking in the train in the morning.
Big Irish boy.
Yeah.
Aye, mate, catch for the friendly ghost, man. Same colour as my t-shirt, that lad. He's a good boy, mate. We all had a good bit of banter on the field.
Nah, he'll love that. He'll love that. And just on the subject, mate. Obviously, for those who don't know Jordan or don't necessarily recognise the accent, he is one proper Geordie boy. So when you're out there, or at least when you first went over there, it must have been a shock for some people to understand that accent.
Oh, 100%. I mean, even just to be dead blunt with you, I cannot speak like this over there. I just can't. So when I first went over to America, which I'm sure we'll come to touch on, I went to South Carolina. So my school that I went to, obviously, you know, you're trying to speak to professors and stuff. And I remember there was one music professor that just thought he was a jokester, you know, and I'd be answering a question, he would just be like, you'll have to slow down, you'll have to say it again. So honestly, lads, you know, when I go to America, I sometimes fall into like a Yorkshire accent, as if I'm from like Donny. So I'll talk like that. I'll talk real slow and I don't even mean, I'm just trying to slow down, but I'll end up sounding like I'm from Doncaster, like Yorkshire. Because obviously I'm just trying to slow down my speech, but
mate, I don't know if either of you have ever experienced this, but the first time I went over for college, first semester, come back on the Christmas, and I didn't even realise it, but my mates absolutely hammered me, saying that I sounded different, saying I'm talking
mate, you know
American.
What it was? You know what it was with me, Jam? I said trash. Oh, it was game over. I got absolutely melted, lads. I said the word crack and I got melted.
Dom, did you ever get any of that?
Yeah, do you know what it is as well? So I'm really relating to that, even like slang. So like, obviously you're Geordie, I might say Hawaii or whatever it is, like certain slang that we use in London, you just can't use it there because I think you're talking another language. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. When Kaza first come to Tormentor, it was a bit like that for me as well. There were some words that he was throwing out that even I didn't understand. So the rest of the boys must have thought he was speaking Japanese or something.
Yeah, and mate, I never getting like if I'm over there, right? I always have this bit of a joke where it's like, obviously people will pick up on your accent and they're like, "Oh, where are you from?" And I always say, "Where do you think I'm from?" And mate, people never say England ever. It's
Serious?
always like Scotland, Ireland. I've had some mad shouts like South African, Australian. I never ever get English ever.
See, I get Australian, but I think compared to both of you, I feel like I'm a little bit more generic in the way that I talk.
I'd say so.
Like you two have got a very distinct dialect from where you're from in the UK. So it doesn't surprise me
But
at
I
all.
think a lot of the times, like Americans will hear "I," or not even just Americans, people will generally hear like "I," and they'll just stimulate straight to Scottish, won't they?
Yeah, very
people
true.
know that this is going to be sound like a stupid question, but do people even know where Newcastle is or know that it's a city? I feel like most people are American.
They just know it's a football team, don't they?
No, but most people are American know London.
Man,
maybe
I've almost
Birmingham.
just spat all over my laptop there, man. That was brilliant. No,
Don't do that.
100%.
You've just forked out a fucking
Yeah,
random map, haven't you?
exactly. Take it back, didn't work. Mate, honestly, if you say it, because this, now I'm going to say this from the start, right? Because there'll be some lad that I know that'll be already, like, if they happen to come across this, like, I'm from in the northeast. I'm from, like, a little town, pretty much right in the middle of County Durham and Newcastle.
Mm-hmm.
So, funny enough, I'm probably closer to County Durham than I am to Newcastle. I'm about 30 minutes from Durham, 20, 30 minutes, and 40, 45 minutes from the town. But I say Newcastle because no one knows County Durham. But like you said, not many people even know Newcastle. And we always go to is, oh, you know, the brown ale, the Newcastle brown ale. Because obviously that's massive out in America, the brown ale. So
you'll find
normally
that
people
you'll
will
find
go
that in that little like Irish pubs and that over there, won't you?
all
like,
the time, mate.
Yeah.
Normally it's the footy team and the brown ale. People are like, oh yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, on the topic of the football team, so you're a Newcastle fan, right? Seen you at the game the other week. So
yeah, man.
when you're talking football, when you're talking about you when you was younger, who was your heroes when it comes to Newcastle and watching them growing up?
You know what, mate? I'm gonna have to like be honest. I loved Arsenal was my first love, eh?
Oh wow!
Honestly, and you know why, mate? I loved Fabregas when I was a kid.
Okay.
When I was like young,
Easy
when I was young, it was obviously like, you know, Thierry Henry, and then it was like Fabregas coming through as a youngster. But then I got to like, I don't know how old I was, you know, like young teens when your mates start to become, you start to get bullied, really, don't you? We call it banter, but it's just pure bullying, really, right? Like I got roped into like, you can't support Arsenal, you're not from London. Like you have to support Newcastle or Sunderland, and if you support Sunderland, you're not knocking around with us anymore. So it was like, right, well, support Newcastle. And that was when we were absolutely crap. Like, so I've had some rough years going, but now obviously we're not doing too bad.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing what a bit of money can do, isn't it?
Don't tell us about us.
And I feel like you make a point about Arsenal. I feel like most people kind of born in the late 90s, Arsenal is like a team. Even if you didn't support them, you really respected them. Like you said, you've got the Invincibles, and then even post-Invincibles, like just the football they played, like you said, with the Fabregases, the young players coming through.
It was Arsene Wenger and Man United won it, really. It was like Arsene Wenger, Sir Alex won it. That was still kind of going on then, won it. So
yeah,
basically.
Yeah, it's nice. It's good that you mentioned Cesc Fabregas, actually, because I can see the comparisons in your style of play between them.
Yeah, man. Well played centre midfield on the half turn. Bit of Spanish about us, really. Yeah, 100%.
Oh, yeah. I can see where you get it from, mate. I can see where you get it from. I guess we can take it from Newcastle and sort of as you make that progression and the jump to the US. So who were you playing for back in Newcastle before you went over to Lander?
Yeah, mate. So I was one of those lads that really didn't have any kind of academy really upbringing. I've obviously listened to a few of your pods and talked to obviously Kaz, and he was obviously kind of his big move was through Spurs, and then you know, Pedro on your last one, I think was it Palmeiras, I think he said it was, or something, wasn't it?
Sao Paulo.
Sao Paulo. Sao Paulo. So mine was a bit of a different story, really, because I played for just my local team when I was a young'un, up until about probably, how old are you when you start playing for your district and your county and all that, lads? I'm trying to think of how old you are. Can't even
12 or
remember.
13? 12 or
Yes,
13? Something like that.
started playing for like my district or my county, and then back then I was a centre midfielder. And like,
there he is.
there he is. I just hit it in the chance, playing centre mid like a centre back. So that's probably why.
Turn
So
him.
what are you giving me the ball in there for? Yeah. So I was a centre mid playing, and I started playing for the district and the county. And basically, the county, I started to obviously just get tall, started to get hit my growth spurt. And there was a coach at county, I think his name was Jim Thompson, if I remember rightly. It was either county or district. He said, look, I think you've got a chance of doing something in the game as a centre back, but as a centre midfielder, I think there's better than you. I remember at the time I was like, don't want to do that. And my dad was like, listen, son, like, if this wants to be fun, or if you want to take it seriously, then George. So I went to centre back, and then things started to happen for us a little bit, where, you know, clubs started to be interested, but it was never like academies or anything. It was always, you know, 6-week trials and development, and then, you know, Carlisle and Hartlepool were interested a little bit, but never actually made the jump to it. So it came to 16, where I remember I had a friend that was going to Gateshead. Now, Gateshead over here in the northeast are like I think they're a 5th division team now, and they had this
England
kind of
National League,
yeah, something like that, right? And they had like a set. I remember it was like labelled as like a last chance, like, because some people obviously listen to this, they might not realise, but if you're not playing like top level by like 18 in England, you're almost considered done, aren't you, really? So it was like, you know, last chance, kind of get yourself into the top, well, not the top, but a good level of football. And I went to Gateshead and done like that old level 3 BTEC thing, and was there for 2 years, and 16 to 18, and then I got fortunately, I got the opportunity to play for England Schoolboys. So I did all the Lily Shoals stuff, and met a bunch of boys from the south. And basically there was a guy came in and sold the dream of America, and then obviously that chapter started. So really, mate, it was boyshood clubs, to answer your question, just like local town boys teams. And then when I hit 16, I started playing for Gateshead, and then I think it was like a men's team, or a team, I think it was called CM Red Star, that like I knew all the lads in the area that were good players that weren't pros were playing for this team. So we all had a crack of playing there, and that was pretty much the last road stop before I jumped on a plane. Like,
nice. And I know, Dom, you probably jump in a little bit more on this, because obviously you were at Tottenham and then got released, and you played for the county and all that as well. So just talk to us a little bit about like that that sort of, I guess, pathway, because you sort of came through, I guess, a similar last 2 years before you made the jump to the US. So what does that look like for all of our US listeners?
Yeah, so for me specifically, I didn't go to like a college or anything where you're kind of almost full-time and studying a little bit, kind of like what Jordan's described maybe in your BTEC. I just went to like a full sixth form, and then played for Concord Rangers under 18s. So like they were in the Conference South or whatever. I played for them under 18s, a decent little setup. But I think for me, still got to play for like my county and play at a good level, and basically played at the best level you could without being in an academy. And that was able to like basically keep me at a high level, especially in London. It's super competitive.
oh man,
Like, you'll find ballers that like playing in non-league at 17, 18, I don't know, Ryman Prem at the time, bagging 15, 16 goals. So I can't get a look in at any of the academies. So like super competitive. And so that's the level I was playing at. And I'm sure it was the same for you, Jordan, right? Where you're probably good enough to play for an academy somewhere, but where you are, it's just super competitive and it's difficult for you to get a look.
right, man, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because obviously you mentioned Kaza and Pedro and a few of our other guests before, and I didn't actually know that because I just went through the standard. I was at Plymouth Argyle, did the YT, took a year out, and then went over to the States. Like, so I wasn't aware of these other pathways that lads have to go through.
That's probably the traditional one in a jam. Most of the time, if you'll have lads out in the States and stuff that have played, that, you know, that are pros or have played pro, or, you know, have took the football somewhere, most of the time they've done a YTS somewhere, haven't they? To use knowledge that, not to use the lingo that everyone will know. They've been at a pro club for a little bit of time,
Yeah.
Whereas for me, it was like, I never made that jump. It was always like, oh, we're interested. We're like, you come in for 6 weeks. Like, I think I went in for like 4 or 5, 6 week trials through like my life as a kid, from being like, 10, 12 to then obviously leaving, but just never landed. So there was always just something there.
So many cases of that. And good players like yourself as well, like they've obviously gone on and done something. You think about how many players that have slipped through the net. Obviously you've taken that extended pathway, but there's probably the list of people
100%
that we could probably name, all three of us in our local area, that you think he could have played pro, or he could have done something in the game, or he could have done this or that or whatever. But because it just didn't happen for them, right place, right time sort of thing, they just never get the opportunity.
100%, mate.
Yeah, and the only thing I was add is that you was probably good enough to play at the academies you went on trial to, but you probably didn't show, and you probably won't be able to say, you probably didn't show that you was better than them, which is why they didn't sign you. So I remember being at Charlton under 15 and being told, look, you've come on trial, you've done well, but you're not better than anything we've got, so like, we're not going to sign you. And that's what people don't realise. Dom, you're probably good enough to be an academy player, but...
Dom, you know what it was for me, mate? And it probably, the penny didn't really drop till, I want to say, like, I was even out in America. Mate, when I was a young'un, like, and still again, up until I was out in college, mate, football just consumed my life, man. So it was almost like, I know myself, and I'd openly admit this now, like, I'd be a nervous wreck, mate. I'd be a nervous wreck, and it would be like, well, hang on, this is what you want. Like, this is what you want to achieve. So why are you letting it? And it wasn't, honestly, lads, it wasn't until I was probably out in America for a little bit that I realised, like, hold on, when I want it too much, I'm nowhere near my best. And it got into the place of becoming like, going out there, being willing to say, this could go crap. And if it does, I'm all right with it. So that's why I think, when I look at some of these lads, right, I'm like, I'm just as good as him. How's he? I've got mates that are playing in the Championship now. And I'm like, wait, hang on. Funny enough, one of them was at Plymouth Argyle that I played with at England Schoolboys.
Oh, yeah.
He was a baller, like Mustafa Bundu.
Oh, yeah, the wide player.
What a player he was,
by the way.
Yeah. But you know what I think the biggest thing is, lads, when I think, like, Bellingham's the biggest one now, I think, like, these lads are not only doing what they're doing at their age, but they've got the mindset for it as well.
Oh, yeah.
'Cause it's all fine and well doing it Monday to Friday, but it's when obviously you cross the white lines and there's something on the line where it's like a maturity, maybe. Maybe is the best way to say it?
I think so.
I didn't have that when I was a young one. Didn't have it.
Yeah, I'm still looking for it.
It's easy to hide when you just put stuff in the channel, Jam. It's so much easier to hide. Then you can just blame the lads for not making the run.
Honestly, this year at Chattanooga, I've never been told to stick it in the channel so much, and it's mad because that's all I used to do as a young'un, and then I'd come into college and then like go to Kansas City.
Playing.
Oh, mate,
playing.
I'm zipping balls into centre midfielder, strikers' feet, this and that. Go to Chattanooga, yeah, Jam, just hit the channel in there.
Brilliant, lad.
Back to basics.
Brilliant.
But anyway, you used the good word there, maturity. And I think another word that myself and anyone who's come across you and seen you play and shared the pitch with you is people associate you with being a leader. You've been a captain at a lot of places you go, and I think it's easy to see why. So how did that happen? Were you always a captain when you were younger? Were you schoolboy teams, or did it happen once you went over to the US? Obviously, I know there's a difference between English lads and American lads in terms of communication on the pitch, certainly, and whatever. But was it just a natural progression for you as you got older, or have you always been that sort of leader type?
Great question. I think a bit of both, probably. I think, number one, I've always just been a mouthy little prick. So, I've always just, like, I can talk to an empty room, as you've probably already been able to tell. Like, so I've always just had, the comfort to use my voice, which I think, probably in probably back in the day, to use that old slogan, it was probably a lot more common on the football pitch, where it's becoming a little bit less so, I feel like. But
Yeah.
I've just always had that voice on the field, and probably in truth, it's probably been one of the things that I think is a young'un that I thought could maybe separate me when we were again going back to the, the pros and things. But obviously when you're going in on trial, you don't want to be running your mouth, because these lads would be like, who the hell's this? But obviously I used to think it was one of my strengths. So I think it's just been one of those things, Jam, where I realised very quickly that if I can make lads around me a little bit better, that makes me valuable.
Yeah.
So if I can make my centre-back partner or midfield partner or right back or left back play 5% better, like that's of value. And I think I had that in my head from being like a late teenager, when I was starting to kind of, you'll know yourselves, when the men's game starts kind of being a potential opportunity, because obviously I played youth football all the way to 17, and then when I turned 17, I started to play a little bit like senior football. And you realise when you go to that, like it's dog eat dog, like if you shrink, you're just going to get left behind. So I realised early, having a bit of a voice gave you a bit of a presence, and then if you helped your team, you could help your unit, and then it was almost domino effect. So I think it was a little bit natural. I was comfortable with me voice on the pitch, and then I realised that there was a place and a value for it.
Right. Okay. Makes sense. Nah, and I can definitely agree with you, because at least this season especially, we had obviously myself and then Declan that we mentioned before. And that was something that we just took upon ourselves, because there weren't many voices on the pitch. So the gaffer turned around to the pair of us and just said, like, I need you to be me voices.
Nice.
But the one thing you touched on, making players better around you, for me, it's that plus. If I'm talking for me, like I left back there, I'm talking to me left midfielder, I'm talking to me centre midfielder inside, obviously me left centre half. Yeah, okay, I'm making them better around me, but also for me, it's if they know what I'm doing and I know what they're doing,
isn't it?
It makes my life easier. So
100%,
I can't understand why lads don't talk on the pitch anymore. Like, Dom, I know you played centre half as well. Was that something that you from our time playing together, I know you were a vocal lad, but was that always something for you as well?
Yeah, I think that was the biggest adjustment for me, even getting to play in the US, is that a lot of these boys are just silenced. And I'm like, how are you playing football in silence? Like, give information. I've been taught that since I was like 8. Pass the ball and give information, turn, set, hold it, where you want the ball, like all of these things. And so, yeah, it's just kind of ingrained in the culture. And I think it's like a little bit of like how your football education was.
100%.
Like, I remember being in sessions and being told, like, it's too quiet. Like, speak up, everyone starts speaking, it's too quiet in it, like from a young age. So I think it's just embedded in us, and something that needs to be embedded in some of the US kids as they're playing football. Like, just don't be scared to speak. Like, it's okay. Like, you could ask for the ball,
And even another one as well, lads, that I think so powerful is even just saying well done.
Yeah.
Is even saying to lads like honestly, my time at Knox, I've been very fortunate to play with some really good defenders, and you've hit the nail on the head there, Jam. When I have them talking to me, it's like, oh, this is like a breath of fresh air. So if I'm in a 1v1 moment and I'm hearing like, keep them down the line, keep them down the line, keep them down the line, I go like, right, I'm trusting you. I'm keeping them down the line.
You don't even think about it, do you?
And then, the actions when something's done, like you lads know yourself, like when your peers on the field see it, you're like, fucking well done, Jam. You're like, oh, yes. Like it lifts
Sometimes
you.
it means more than
100%.
like coming from the gaffer, doesn't it, on the sideline?
Oh, mate, 100%.
Like, at
and
least
I think
in that moment itself.
And it's even for me. I'm not talking, and this is again like where I think it's partly like it's the twofold of partly being natural and partly being like I can see value in it. Is like you can't force it. Some lads are just naturally quiet lads. So trying to make them communicate can actually take them off their game. So I think for me, it has to be a little bit natural, but I think things of just saying well done, of, being a good teammate, of, X, Y, and Z, anybody and everybody can do. But being like a big bellowing voice that like your gaffers ask you to do, Jam, I feel like you've got to have that, because that's where I think it comes into another conversation of you can lead in many different ways, can't you? Doesn't just have to be your voice.
100%. And I mean, just on that that subject there as well. I mean, you think about some of the best players that have played the game. You know, you look at someone like, I don't know, Steven Gerrard, for example. Obviously a vocal guy around the pitch, but that's someone as well that leads by example. Yeah,
100%.
Do you know what I mean? And it's not just rah 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 shouting at everyone and making sure everyone's in line. Like there's players that take the game by the scruff of the neck. There's sometimes don't even wear the armband that will take the game by the scruff of the neck, and the rest of the lads will follow.
100%. I think that's where again that leads back into it has to be natural for you, and it's always just been fairly natural for me in the sense of, you know, praising people, encouraging, moving the unit, which obviously is part of the job for a defender, really, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
And I think the biggest one for me that I've had to kind of manage probably a little bit better with moving to America is probably the how do I word it, like the carrot and the stick, for example.
The hammer
of like in America. In America, that doesn't always go down well. You know, and having to learn probably more so in myself, like I'm actually being the bad, like if it's not helping the player and it's not helping the team, it doesn't matter if I think it's right.
Yeah.
And it had to adapt to that being something that I've had to do.
I want to actually keep going on that. So like, were there any situations where you were misunderstood? Because I think I can see from my own experience.
100, mate, probably more more than the other way.
Misunderstood, they didn't understand what he was saying, or
well, not maybe that what it was. Maybe that was the problem. We'll say that was the problem. We'll say that. Yeah, not that he's a prick. We'll say I just didn't understand it. No, I think you know what that is, lads. Genuinely, and I think it comes back to what we said earlier on. Like, I've gotten better at it thanks to the blessing of my faith, since my faith's become important in my life. But football used to be everything to me. And I mean, like, if I didn't win a small-sided game in training, that meant nothing. I couldn't be okay for a little bit. Now, you know, I used to think it's a good thing. I used to think competitiveness, that's a good thing. The desire to win, like, that's a good thing. And I think, to be fair, I think that's got us to where I am, because there's a lot more talented boys than I am that have, you know, fell by the wayside. But for me, that was good up until a point where it started to be detrimental, because then it was like, I started to view teammates, lads, where if I didn't think they'd help me win, I didn't want out to do with them.
Right.
Which I realised was, again, wasn't helpful for the team.
Yeah.
So I had to adapt that, you know. And I think one of the biggest things, Dom, to come back to your thing is like, I said it earlier, it can come across as bullying. It can come across as like, who's this guy? Like, you know, and I had a bit of a time at North Carolina where it was a younger squad. And I look back on it now and think, like, I was looking like some like 16-year-old lads. And I'm like, how would that have been for you when you were 16? You know, fine well it wouldn't have worked for you. You know, so
a
little bit of it.
Definitely, yeah. And do you know what? I like that you reflected there a little bit, because obviously it speaks to, like, you talked about how you developed into that leadership role, but it's definitely something that you've sort of reassessed many a time. And it's funny you mentioned North Carolina there, because obviously you played with Goosey there, didn't you? And
what a boy, mate! You've got to get him on here. He is a legend, Dom. Mr. Fernandez himself.
Yeah,
Mr.
mate.
Worldwide.
Mr. Worldwide. I'll tell you now. Well, I guess I'm telling everyone. So I did our end of season awards for the players this past year.
Oh, brilliant!
And Goosey came away with 4. He came away with best dressed, funniest teammate,
worst breath.
One other and top shagger.
Yeah, longest in the shower, top shagger. Bosh. What a boy, man. He honestly, like, I had North Carolina was massive for me in my life, lads, and obviously fell away from, I don't know if we're going to come to it, but fell away from the pros, got back into the pros, and I was told very early, like, look, our whole ethos here, they'd just come down from the champ, right? So it was all about the whole, what do they call them, man? The academy contracts, where it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
they could have a lot of these academy contracts, and they were going to really try hard to push these lads to Europe. And they had four boys that they were like, right, these are our four. And to be fair, one or two of them were dancing around Europe a little bit and getting on trials and stuff. So they were doing really well. But I got told
did
from
it pan out for any of them?
I don't think any of them panned out, mate, to be fair. But there's two of them that are still in the pro system in America doing well for themselves, and I think they've got a really good shot. There's actually three. I lie. There's three that are still in the pro system, and there's one that I think he maybe tried his hand in somewhere in Europe. I don't know how he's doing, but basically I got told, like, look, you might have a 16-year-old goalie and a 17-year-old centre-back next to you. Like, just letting you know that on the up front. And I was like, absolutely fine. But that centre-back that was the young one I got on with so well, but he went away for Europe on like the whole of pre-season. He was around Europe. Where Goosey was there as a walk-on, as a trialist. Goosey was there.
Yeah, because he come from Madison to you boys, didn't he?
Mate, yeah, so he wasn't even signed. And I remember being like, again, that little bit of my old self being like, hang on, who's this guy centre-back? Like, target acquired. Like,
yeah.
You know. But then straight away it was like, oh, he's the boy, man.
Yeah,
he's just the boy.
Yeah,
so then me and him became
to
really, really good friends, man.
Yeah, nah, Goosey, I know you'll be listening to this one, so don't worry, I'll get you on the pod soon, mate.
Oh, his brother's way better than he is, so just bring Goosey off and get Leo.
Mate, you know, I'll
just use Goosey. Goosey to get the Leo.
Yeah, I'll pitch it as the Fernandez brothers.
And then, yeah, it'd be like, so Gustavo. Oh, is that Leo there? Leo. Yeah, man. Brilliant. He'll be dying at that.
Oh,
So,
mate. I can't wait for his brother to hear that as well, you know.
Yeah, he's the boy.
So obviously we transitioned from you, Dan, from Newcastle to the US. Obviously you played in college. You said you was in the South in South Carolina, and then a little bit about you kind of moving into the program and being a leader everywhere you go. So talk to us a little bit about the transition from college to the program, because obviously from what I understand, you didn't actually play like a Division 1 school. It wasn't a thing where you got drafted. So again, a kind of unconventional story. So just tell us a little bit about how you moved into the program.
Yeah, mate. So for me, I came, like I said, I was with Gateshead and I was with the England Schoolboys, and I was kind of gathering information, but knew very, very little about the American world, so to speak. And I had 4 or 5 offers come through I had more than 4 or 5, but I whittled it down to 4 or 5 of like, right, these are the 4 or 5 schools I'm interested in. And it was like St. John's, Lowell, Boston, Massachusetts, Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville, Fairleigh Dickinson, and there was another D1 school I can't remember. But then there was this D2 school that told us they were getting like lads from Exeter City, lads from Leyton Orient, lads from Chesterfield, lads from and I was like, hang on, they're getting like 6 English lads. They're bringing it just sounded like it was going to be a full English team, boys. So I was like, right, I'm going to add that into the list. And all of these teams told us like, get this on your SAT, blah, 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 blah. Ended up getting exactly what the SAT score I needed to get a full ride at Lander. So I went to Lander, which was this little D2 schoolboys in Greenwood, South Carolina. Right, Jam? Similar kind of vibe to Statesboro.
Okay.
Similar-ish.
Yeah.
Which is obviously, for people listening, where you've played obviously in the past.
Yeah.
Just a fishbowl, just an absolute bubble of a town. Like everybody knows what's going on. So I realised
all about the school.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I realised very quickly, Dom, that Lander wasn't probably going to get me into the pros. It was going to be, at the time, I got told about this PDL, which has obviously changed a little bit now to USL 2 and stuff, but I got told, listen, Lander's not going to get you to the draft or anything. Like, you might get a few trials, but it's the summer that's going to get you a look in. So, lads, I played every summer from being a freshman. I never went home until Christmas every year in America. So, I played freshman year, sophomore, junior, I didn't end up playing senior because I graduated. And I was like, first summer I played for a small PDL team. Second summer I ended up going with Mark McKeever at Brilla. Third summer with Brilla. And then the fourth summer I went with Tormentor, which obviously is where Jam played a few of his pro seasons. And I played there for their 2 team. we're done really well. Just I think we finished in the semi-finals. I think we lost to Reading. And then, long story short, they kept me around, and I signed at the end of that summer for the pro team. So it was kind of like a natural transition where when I left college, I had a really good year in the summer where I got, you lads might know about the top prospect in the PDL and team of the season. I got a few sweet accolades to get us in the shop window. The thing is, like you said, Dom, I was a D2 boy, an international D2 boy, which straight away your stock goes like, wank, So it was like, right, let's just see what happens.
That now, mate. Still feeling that now.
Trust us, mate. So didn't get any draft, none of that. It was like, right, you're just going to have to go out on trials. Because, not to go on a big tangent, but when I finished my summer and finished my school year, I built up a good enough recognition where there was teams looking at us. And there was St. Louis, who were in the championship at the time, Greenville, and who was the other team? Tormentor, I think. That basically all three of them were like, look, we're going to give you a contract. And I went and met with John Hawkes at Greenville for a coffee, and I thought, because Greenville, South Carolina is like 30 minutes away from where I went to school.
Yeah,
right?
I was going to say,
this will be ledge. But ended up what happening is I think it was Anthony Pulis at St. Louis was like, look, we'll give you this contract. And I was like, ledge, like championship, jumping on it. What ended up happening is my agent and the club were trying to dance around contracts where the contract ended up getting pulled, lads. So I got told off the head coach. I got told off Pulis, like, look, we want you. We're going to have you. I told Hawks, like, look, no disrespect. I just want to try and get in the championship. So Hawks understood. Told Tormentor championship. And then my agent was trying to get something with St. Louis where there was going to be like it was a year and an option contract, very minimal for a rookie. But my agent was trying to get like a trigger so that the second year would trigger into like an automatic contract. And it was just going back and forward. And the general manager at St. Louis just went, it's not happening anymore. So I was like, no. So then, lads, I run to Greenville, and Hawks is like, listen, you told us no. I've went and explored other options. Completely fair enough. Go to Tormentor. They say the same thing. So then ended up having to be in the summer, and then grafting in the summer. Played in the summer for probably 3 or 4 weeks, lads, and we played Chattanooga Red Wolves in the first Open Cup game. So I'm playing for the 2 team. Mate, we scalped Chattanooga Red Wolves like 3-1 in the first round of the Open Cup, and then we were playing Nashville the next round. Went to Nashville, lads, and I remember I went up for a header against Cam Lancaster, and he's there's like the classic smaller striker thing. I went up for a header, and he's give us the old like bomb, lads. I landed me knee like hyperextended, like snap crackle pop. Heard all of it, lads. So I remember like thinking, I'm against Nashville. This is my chance. Now I'm in the trenches now, trying to get a contract. So I remember like thinking, right, how I come on. It was the 30th minute mark. Played the rest of the game, lads, just purely on adrenaline. I woke up on the next morning. I thought my leg had been cut off. Like I've broke my arm, lads. I've broke my arm, snapped my arm in 2 places. I've been knocked out probably 3 or 4 times. I've never felt pain like this in my knee ever. So I was like, you know yourselves straight away. You're going, it's the dreaded ACL, right? It's the ACL. I go and get scans, and basically what the surgeon told us was, I hadn't snapped my ACL, but I'd stretched it so much. He used this analogy of like it lost its elasticity. So my ACL didn't have an end point anymore. So my knee was like going beyond its like where it would meant to stop because of the ACL. It was going beyond it. So lads, I'm thinking, hang on, I'm meant to be in the pros here. I'm fighting for my pros. I didn't get a pro. I've now potentially done my ACL. I'm getting booked in for surgery in 3 or 4 weeks because they had to let the swelling come down from the knee. So I'm like, good Lord, I'm like, Lord, what is going on here?
Yeah.
Right? I'm still in international at the time. So I'm getting ready to go into surgery, and I don't know what it is, boys, right? I was just like, God, I'll do anything. Like, I just was like, anything, don't let this be my knee. So I just started to do a little bit of exercises, just little bits, lads, like nothing stupid. I went back 3 weeks later to do the checkup to make sure everything was right again. And the doctor said, look, I've never seen this in my entire life. That knee, I wouldn't operate on that knee. And I was like, what? He's like, I wouldn't operate on that knee. I would let that knee It's gotten so much better. It may even get like, so lads, I was like, God, thank
No
you, thank you,
way.
thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I played a week later in the first round of the playoffs for Tormentor. Played 2 or 3 games, and then they ended up giving us a pro a few months later.
Mad. Maddest story. Maddest story. Wow.
So I went from like graduating, had like a good summer, good final year in college, got a few accolades, got in the shop window, got a few pros, didn't get a pro. Coming to summer, coming to Tormentor, doing well, do your knee. Told it's your ACL, rock bottom. Somehow find a miraculous healing by I can only give it by the grace of God. End up doing all right in the last few games and end up getting a pro a couple of months later. So, mate, Dom, my getting into the pros, I don't know how it happened, really. Don't know how it happened.
It's not easy, man. This is the stories that we're trying to get out here, man. It's not easy, bro. It's not easy, bro. The ups and downs are mad. Jam, what do you think?
Mate, that is the craziest story. And do you know what? Like, I'm not just saying it because you're on here. I really think like football's such a cruel game. Like football's like at the end of the day, like we all love it. We all love it to death. That's why we still play it. But it's shit because there's so many good people that like yourself that have such a tough ride to get in just where they want to be, just to a level where they're happy playing at and playing to their absolute maximum. And like life just throws these fucking boulders in front of them.
Wait, you know what, Jam? Just to add even on, the next year was COVID, lads. So my first year in the pros, I finished that year because obviously, as you know, you play in the summer. You play until like, what is it, like June, July, August? Like you play like during those summer times, don't you?
Yeah.
I got signed, I think, like in that August period after the. Pretty sure it was after the summer, sometime in that period. Played that year, and then the following year was COVID. So like my first, like, right, this is my first full year in the pros. Like, I don't know if you were playing then, Jam. I think you were still in college, but it was like, oh, the season's going to get cancelled and contracts are going to get made void. That was like, that was chat around the league, Dom.
Yeah.
Like, they might scrap the league, they might scrap the contracts, and it's like, well, hang on, I'm an international lad. What does that mean for my visa? So all of this is going on, you know. So you talk about, like you said, just the cruelty of the game. Like, listen, everybody has it in life, don't they? The ups and downs, but add that to the mix, and it was an interesting pot. Like,
yeah, I bet you just felt like you were just getting punched up, like one jab after another, and then they just started becoming left hooks, right hooks out of nowhere.
And then you're in Statesboro, Georgia, where it's like a fishbowl, and there's nothing else other than the school.
Not
like
much of an escape there.
You know, there's not much of an escape, and we were getting told, like, don't go out, like, go and then go back to your house, like, nothing because of COVID. And then, listen, I don't want to go too deep with you lads, because I know this is like a, I don't want to say a light-hearted podcast, but like, that was my first taste, lads, where I talked about like the game being too much. That for me was when the point where things just went like hot for me. Because that was when my mental health like spiraled like mad, because all I'd relied on the whole time was the game, and the game had kind of been going all right for us, which then means you rely on it even more.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it wasn't going all right, and then it was like, well, what the heck? What's going on now?
Yeah.
And it just went
the bubble burst. Yeah.
Dive bomb, mate. Because then the football doesn't even become joyful anymore. It just becomes like. It becomes a place of like, I have to win here to be okay. And if I don't win, what's the point?
Yeah, it's a dangerous
Which is when it became like a dangerous place to be, lads. So, but I again, thankfully, I'm very grateful for that experience, because that then, the end of that year, like the guy that was my summer coach became the head coach, Ian Cameron, who's now there, obviously now Jam. Yeah. So he at the end of the year was like, look, like, I just don't think there's going to be a place here for you. And I, at the time, couldn't understand it. I was like, hang on, like, what? I don't understand it, but I can understand now looking back, because I became a terrible person. Like, again, like, I became terrible. And then I remember leaving that and coming into the summer, and then it was like, right, hopefully we can get your head right here and, like, actually get the game to be what it used to be. And that was when obviously went into playing for Des Moines Menace in the summer. and had a good experience with Des Moines Menace and reunited back up with Mark McKeever, and had a pretty good summer that year, won the whole thing. And that was then what kind of like propelled me game to be like, look, you can actually, there's still the fire in the belly here.
Yeah,
and it can be a good thing.
I'm sure it was a mixture of that, but also, shit, I can play football here and it can be fun. Like, it doesn't have to be like the
100%.
be all and end all. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can have fun whilst doing this. I'm sure that not only were you enjoying it on the pitch, but you were probably better in the changing room. You were probably better around the place on the training ground, and that's things that people don't realize. Like, it's not just the person you see on a Saturday afternoon or a Saturday evening on the pitch, you know, with the name and number on your back.
No,
like it's the Monday to Friday. It's the what you like in the changing room. Like, that all goes into being a player, innit? So I bet once those sort of dominoes started to fall into place, I'm sure then all of a sudden you take a step back and you go, shit, this is what I remember. This is why I started playing.
Mate, it's meant to be like, there's a balance, but it's meant to be joyful. It's meant to be passion based. Do you know what I mean? And you know what it became for me, lads? It became a prison. It became done well and won. It was like, whoa, thank the Lord.
Yeah.
Lost, didn't win, didn't play well. My entire identity became under threat.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, if they don't think of me as the best centre-back in the league now, it was like, that was my thing. It was like, I have to be the best centre-back in the league, have to be the best centre-back in the league. And whenever that got like threatened, my whole world fell apart. And it was like, would just say that to yourself, and how does that sound to yourself? And you're like, yeah, it doesn't sound very stable. Thankfully, that journey panned its way out to where now, you know, I look at the game and listen, still have the fire for it and still want to, you know, desire to win and do anything to win. But I try and go out there on the field now of like, you know, giving it to God to say, if this goes terrible, I'm going to be all right. I'll 100%. Probably not be happy, and I'll not be okay with it, but I'll be all right, you know. And thankfully, again, by the grace of God, I've been able to get to that place.
Yeah, mate.